Hello, welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. As you know, I'm Big Italy 42. I'm here helping you run through tonight's 6-game slate of action, and not a lot of guys that I love tonight. Obviously, a short slate. There's not going to be a ton of options you feel great about, but certainly some guys that are in play for me, and some guys I like more than others, of course. As you're looking at the top here at starting pitcher, of course, you need 2 on DraftKings. Danny Salazar at $9,300 has got to be your top option. It's a middling offense for the White Sox. They don't have a lot of power outside of Jose Abreu, and they rank 19th in the league against right-handed pitching. Salazar has a monster 34% strikeout rate, a 14.5% swing and strike rate, which is just absolutely incredible. So he's got a lot of great things going for him. His xFIP 2.33, so you got to like that. And this is a White Sox team that strikes out about league average, just under 20%. So really the only thing you're worried about here is the fact that Danny Salazar, I keep mixing him up with Carlos Carrasco. Danny Salazar has given up 7 home runs so far in the season, which isn't terrible, but it's more than you'd like. Obviously, U.S. Cellular, a good park for offense. So a place that you're not really trying to, you generally don't feel great about your pitching there, but Salazar, by far the biggest upside in tonight's slate, if you ask me. Only one other guy that's close. I'll get to him in a few minutes here, but I think Salazar has got to be your guy. He's minus 125 favorite against John Danks. You expect the Indians will probably give him some run support. They've been pretty good against left-handed pitching this year, which is an upgrade from last year, so you're going to be looking that way. If I'm not looking that way, I'm looking at Jesse Chavez as my other cash game option. I'll probably be pairing these 2 guys in my cash games. Chavez is a guy who gets Tampa Bay today. He's been a pretty good pitcher so far this season. Just under 23% strikeout rate, swing and strike rate over 10%. He's been holding lefties and righties to under 260 WOBA, so it's been an impressive run for him so far. The Rays are 22nd in the league in team WOBA with just a 301. 129 team ISO is not very much. He's only allowed 1 home run this season. They don't have much power. Both those things go in his favor. Obviously, Tampa Bay, more of a pitcher's park than anything, so not a lot of risk in my mind here with Chavez. I mean, the only negative he really has is his walk rate, which is around 8%, but that's slightly above league average. It's really nothing to be concerned about. I think he's your SP2 for today. Elsewhere, you're looking at Clay Buchholz, $7,900. This is a guy that's shown some massive upside. 11 strikeouts, just 3 hits, 1 earned run on a home run to Seth Smith last time out. 36.2 fantasy points on DraftKings. This is a guy who has done a good job at keeping the ball on the ground, nearly 50%. Strikeout rate of 27%. xFIP under 3. And, you know, he's like the ultimate GPP play because we've seen him be great. We've seen him be terrible. If you look at his logs, I mean, that tells you exactly the entire story there. 36, 12, 11, 1, 27, 16, negative 11, and 35 are his logs for the year. So he's got a big-time upside tonight against the Texas team that has very little power. 125 team ISO, 21% strikeout rate. They're 25th in the league against righties. I think he's my favorite tournament option on tonight's slate. As you're looking at these other guys, most of these guys I'm going to want to target. I'm targeting John Danks. I'm targeting Kyle Hendricks. I'm targeting Matt Garza. Alex Colomé is interesting, but he's pitched well. But Oakland hits righties really well. And Colomé really, his last 2 starts, kind of got hit around a little bit by the Yankees in Minnesota after 2 good starts against 2 better offenses there. So really not a way that I'm going to be looking at him. Matt Shoemaker is the guy that people will be on tonight. He has a big strikeout rate, had a great game out at Baltimore last time, but got crushed by Houston the time before. And then he had a good game against Seattle and got beat up by Oakland the game before. He's just not a guy that I have much faith in. I certainly don't have much faith in his 28% ground ball rate or the 11 home runs he's allowed. So a lot of people will be targeting him in tournaments. He's not a guy I'm a big fan of tonight. I have more faith in these Toronto bats than anything. So if you want to go that route, I don't blame you. He does have the big upside, but just not for me tonight. And Julio Teheran, if you know me, you know how I feel about him. I just don't think he's that good of a pitcher. I think he's slightly above average. I think he's bad more often than he's good. And if you look at his logs, that would indicate the same thing. I mean, he has 5 starts, 15 points or less, and just 2 of 2 of 20 or more. So for $8,800, I don't care that Milwaukee's numbers on the season are bad. This team is much better than their numbers indicate, if you ask me. They're starting to swing some bats. Carlos Gonzalez is back. He's starting to hit the ball. Ryan Braun is hitting. They hit back-to-back-to-back at Tiger Stadium the other day. 152 team ISO starting to creep up. Teheran, a fly ball pitcher. Not a situation I want to be involved in, at least on the Atlanta side with Julio Teheran. Let's move on here to catcher. Russell Martin's the guy who was my big difference from a big payday last night, so got to put recency bias away. Russell Martin makes for a good play if you ask me tonight against the Angels. I like him at $4,300. Elsewhere, of course, I like Stephen Vogt. Same old story here against a righty. $3,700, a nice price tag for him. Other guys you can consider, Miguel Montero, $3,300. You don't love the park at Petco, but what you do love is that he mashes right-handed pitching. Odrisamer to Spain, not a guy that's particularly good. He does a good job keeping the ball on the ground, but extreme contact pitcher. 4.7% swing strike rate, 9% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate. The guy isn't fooling anyone. He's not going to be fooling Miguel Montero. I like him tonight a lot at that price tag. Outside of that, I'm really not digging too deep. Maybe look and see if we get some good lineup positions. I don't mind A.J. Pierzynski. He's still been getting on base. Doesn't have a lot of upside, but at $3,300 against Matt Garza, who is just awful right now. Gave up 10 earned runs his last start. I don't mind going that route either. As we move to first base, I like Edwin Encarnacion a lot. He's my favorite play at $4,800. If you're not playing Salazar, Abreu makes for a great tournament play in a short slate where Salazar will be popular. That's a great way to get yourself an edge in a GPP. Other options, Freddie Freeman against Matt Garza. I already mentioned I'm going to be targeting him. I like Freddie Freeman a lot. Hits a ton of line drives. Guy's got a great chance of having a big game. I think Atlanta puts up a decent number on Garza tonight. Elsewhere, I mean, Anthony Rizzo has been hot, but you get Petco Park. It's a good matchup for him, but at $4,900, I think I'd rather pay for Encarnacion. Mike Napoli in a tournament against Wandy Rodriguez, a lefty, certainly in play. And then a cheaper guy I like that I don't mind for cash games either is Adam Lind against Julio Teheran there. He's $3,800. One of the better hitters in the game against righties, as we know. Certainly going to go that route, and I will not be punting first base. There's one guy who has first base eligibility, who I'll get to later, who's a really cheap option, but I'll be playing him in the outfield. Second base, I like Dustin Pedroia at $4,100 against the lefty at home and Wandy Rodriguez. I think he's a fine play. Delino DeShields has been batting second. He's got big-time stolen base upside. He's been getting on base, so if you're not playing buckholes, $3,700 makes him interesting at a really weak position. Devin Travis is back tonight. I'll be playing him against Matt Shoemaker. I haven't seen any word yet about him yet. Jose Ramirez, $3,400. I'll probably be playing him at shortstop, but he has second base eligibility. Should be batting second against John Dakes, I would assume, tonight, so I think he's a fine play. If you're not playing Chavez, Logan Forsythe is also a play for me there. I don't mind him. If you're looking for cheap, Corey Spangenberg against Kyle Hendricks, I think is a fine play there. But outside of that, not digging any deeper. Third base options here. You're looking at the top, Adrian Beltre, your most expensive guy against Clay Buchholz. I don't mind him. He's more of a tournament play for me, though. I really like Josh Donaldson, despite it being a righty matchup with Matt Shoemaker. Still got a lot of power. Still at home in the Rogers Center. I think he'll go under owned since he's not facing a lefty. So I like him. And Chris Bryant, tournament only, but he's got big upside, as we know, $4,500 if he gets it going. Elsewhere, I don't love Evan Longoria, but I think he's an okay play. I'd rather him against the lefty. Chavez is a pretty good pitcher, so I'm not going on my way to target him. $3,500, you can go Ramos Ramirez or David Freese. I don't mind either one of those guys. Once again, cheap options, not looking great on a short slate. Spangenberg, who I already mentioned, also has third base eligibility. That'd probably be the cheap way that I'd go here. Shortstop, Hanley Ramirez. Still shortstop eligible on DraftKings. Take advantage where you can. He was a monster letdown for me and others last night. But at the same time, really don't mind targeting him and his upside in this matchup. Elsewhere, you got Marcus Semien, tournament only, obviously at $4,100. His price is really up there. But we know if Colome is not getting it done, Oakland could put up a big number. He should be a big part of that, batting near the top of the order. But we've also seen him drop down to 8th a couple times. So keep your eye on where he's at in the lineup. Eric Ibar, if he leads off again, I like him against Dickey at $3,600. But my go-to at short is going to be Andrelton Simmons against Matt Garza. $3,500. He's a guy that gets on base. He has a decent amount of power for a shortstop. I think he'll be my go-to for cash games. I already mentioned Jose Ramirez. He's also shortstop eligible, of course. And cheaper? No thanks. Moving on to the outfield. Mike Trout got a home run last night. Starting to show his Bryce Harper side, if you will, due to what's going on recently. $5,300, got to be your top option. Michael Brantley, great tournament option against John Danks, but he's $100 more than Trout. Should keep his ownership really low tonight. I love both of the Brewers bats there, and Carlos Gonzalez and Ryan Braun. Braun, $400 cheaper. Gomez with more of a stolen base upside. Take your pick there. Love Jose Bautista. He's probably my number 2 overall. in the outfield at 4,700. Outside of that, there's not a lot that I would love to pay up for. I don't mind Cole Calhoun, but at 4,400, he's kind of pricey. At the same time, you don't have expensive pitching options, so you can pretty much pick and choose your spots here with anyone you really want. Shin-Soo Choo at $4,000. Slow couple games here, but he's really been getting it going in the month of May. I don't mind him if you're not playing buckholes. Elsewhere, as you move down, you've got some other cheap options. Lionel DeShields, I mentioned at second. He has outfield eligibility as well. Kevin Kiermaier, once again, you know I love him. If he's leading off, I don't mind him against Chavez. I think he's in a fine spot there. Chris Davis, if you're trying to chase a home run in that big ballpark, 3,600 against Tehran. No way I would ever play him in a cash game, but I think he's a nice tournament option. As you're looking cheaper here, a few guys I'm looking at here. You got Chris Coughlin's been hitting the ball pretty well. Had 2 homers a couple days ago. He's an upside-only pick. He's got 6 home runs, just 9 RBIs. So he's a solo home run guy. That's about it. He usually hits about 7th, so I think he's got decent upside. Gerardo Parra batted second last time out. If he's in that spot at 3,100, I think he's a great punt play. Ryan Rayburn, of course, against the lefty. Same old story there. 2,900, great play. The guy I alluded to earlier is Chris Colabello, $2,800. He's been hitting the ball well, batting around 5th or 6th in that lineup. I like him against Matt Shoemaker. Once again, I mentioned I'm targeting him. And he'll be as cheap as I'll be going tonight. And where I will also be going is out of here. Thank you for hanging out here. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. As always, our great content on dailyfantasycafe.com. And you can find me on Twitter at BigItaly42 if you got any questions about tonight's slate or any other slate. And I'll see you tomorrow.